welcome back. Gunfire, smoke and chaos ripple across one of the most fragile borders in the world. The tense line separating Afghanistan and Pakistan has once again turned into a battlefield. Taliban and Pakistani forces are exchanging heavy fire, and the situation is escalating fast. Civilians are fleeing, both governments are issuing threats, and the entire region is holding its breath. In the midst of this growing crisis, a new voice has entered the scene: Saudi Arabia. The kingdom is urging both nations to show restraint and resolve their differences through peace and dialogue. As the violence intensifies, many are asking, can Saudi diplomacy calm this storm, or is South Asia heading toward another dangerous chapter? Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving deep into the latest and most concerning escalation between the Taliban and Pakistani forces. The border that was supposed to symbolize stability has now turned into a flashpoint of fear. In this video, we'll break down what's happening on the ground, what's driving both sides to this dangerous confrontation, and why Saudi Arabia's call for peace might be the most crucial diplomatic step in this ongoing crisis. On the exterior, what we're seeing right now is an alarming and violent confrontation along the Afghanistan-Pakistan border. Reports confirm that the exchange of gunfire has been intense, with both sides blaming each other for starting it. The Torkham and Chaman crossings, major points of trade and transport, have turned into zones of conflict. Pakistani forces claim that Taliban fighters opened fire first, targeting their border posts. The Taliban, on the other hand, accuse Pakistan of firing unprovoked into Afghan territory. The mountains that divide these nations are now echoing with explosions, and the fragile peace that once existed there has shattered. Civilians living near the border have fled their homes, and businesses that depended on cross-border trade have been forced to shut down. From a distance, it looks like a simple border dispute, but the interior story, the deeper cause, reveals a much more complex reality. The relationship between Pakistan and the Taliban has been complicated for decades. When the Taliban regained control of Afghanistan in 2021, Pakistan expected smoother ties and a cooperative government across its western border. However, the opposite has happened. The Taliban, confident in their new power, have grown increasingly independent, rejecting Pakistan's influence and demanding full respect for Afghan sovereignty. They also refuse to recognize the Durand Line, the 2,600-kilometer border drawn more than a century ago by British colonial powers, as an international boundary. For Pakistan, this refusal is a direct challenge to its territorial integrity. Adding to this tension is Pakistan's claim that the Taliban are harboring militants from the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, TTP, a group responsible for numerous deadly attacks inside Pakistan. Islamabad accuses the Taliban government of turning a blind eye to these insurgents, who continue to cross the border, strike Pakistani targets, and then retreat into Afghanistan. The Taliban deny these accusations, insisting they do not support any militant operations against their neighbors. This war of words, combined with decades of mistrust, has now turned into a war of bullets. When we look at performance, how each side has responded militarily and politically, we see both nations displaying strength, but also exposing weaknesses. Pakistan's military is one of the strongest in the region, equipped with advanced weapons, drones, and years of counter-terrorism experience. Yet despite all its resources, it struggles to control the mountainous terrain and tribal regions along the border. These areas are difficult to patrol, and are home to local populations that often have stronger ethnic ties across the border than loyalty to national governments. On the other hand, the Taliban's forces, though less equipped, have decades of combat experience in guerrilla warfare. They are fast, adaptable, and deeply familiar with the geography. Their confidence has grown significantly since taking power, and they now see any cross-border fire as a direct threat to Afghanistan's sovereignty. However, both sides' performance on the diplomatic stage has been poor. The clashes have damaged already fragile relations, and both governments are using nationalist rhetoric to strengthen domestic support. Pakistan insists it has the right to defend itself from cross-border terrorism, while the Taliban claim they are protecting Afghan dignity. This cycle of pride and power politics is turning each new confrontation into a national cause, making de-escalation even more difficult. When it comes to safety features, the steps taken by both countries to protect their people and stabilize the border, the picture is grim. Pakistan has spent millions building fences, installing surveillance systems, and fortifying border checkpoints. The Taliban have also strengthened their posts, deploying more soldiers and constructing lookout towers. Yet these so-called safety measures have ironically become sources of conflict. Every new fence post, camera, or bunker is seen by the other side as a provocation. Civilians who are supposed to be protected by these defenses are the ones suffering the most. Families in border villages are forced to evacuate as fighting intensifies. Children can't attend school, and local markets once filled with trade goods are now empty. The promise of safety has turned into the reality of fear. What makes this crisis unique, its real selling point in terms of global attention, is the unexpected involvement of Saudi Arabia. Riyadh's call for peace is not just a symbolic gesture. It carries significant political weight. Saudi Arabia has long-standing ties with both Pakistan and Afghanistan, dating back to the 1980s, when it supported Afghan resistance against Soviet occupation alongside the United States and Pakistan. Today, as one of the most influential Muslim nations, Saudi Arabia's voice carries moral and diplomatic authority. By calling for peace, Riyadh is positioning itself as a mediator and reminding the Muslim world that internal conflict only weakens collective unity. Saudi Arabia's statement emphasizes the need for dialogue and restraint, urging both sides to resolve their disputes through peaceful negotiation rather than violence. This move aligns with Riyadh's recent foreign policy shift toward diplomacy and stability, from reconciling with Iran to mediating in Sudan and supporting peace efforts in Yemen. The kingdom's involvement in this crisis reflects a growing desire to promote unity across the Muslim world and prevent regional instability from spiraling out of control. For Pakistan and the Taliban, this intervention could offer a face-saving opportunity to step back without appearing weak. If managed wisely, Saudi Arabia's request for peace could pave the way for new talks that restore communication and prevent further bloodshed. But every diplomatic effort comes with a price, and this conflict's price tag is rising by the day. Economically, both nations are struggling. Pakistan faces inflation, a weakening currency, and declining investor confidence. Border closures have disrupted trade routes that are vital for its economy. Afghanistan's economic situation is even worse. Isolated from the global financial system, the country depends heavily on cross-border trade with Pakistan for basic goods. Every time the border shuts down, the Afghan people suffer shortages of food, fuel, and medicine. Traders lose livelihoods, and transport companies go bankrupt. This economic strain is pushing both countries toward deeper crises they can barely afford. The human cost is even higher. Each exchange of fire forces more families to flee their homes, creating small waves of displacement. Farmers lose their crops, students lose their schools, and entire communities are left traumatized. The emotional scars of these conflicts run deep, and the longer this continues, the harder reconciliation will become. Both nations share culture, language, and faith, but they are now divided by mistrust and violence. The people on both sides of the border are paying the price for political and military calculations beyond their control. This situation also comes with geopolitical consequences. China, Iran, and other regional powers are watching closely. China, heavily invested in Pakistan through the Belt and Road Initiative, worries that continued instability could threaten its economic projects. Iran, which also shares borders with Afghanistan, fears the ripple effects of escalating violence. Meanwhile, the United States and Western powers remain cautious, aware that rising instability in this region could create new spaces for extremist groups to regroup. In the end, this conflict is not just about two countries exchanging fire. It's about the broader challenge of coexistence, trust, and shared responsibility in a region still recovering from decades of war. The path forward must involve compromise, communication, and the courage to prioritize peace over pride. Both governments need to recognize that stability is not a sign of weakness, but a foundation for progress. In conclusion, the ongoing exchange of fire between Taliban and Pakistani forces marks one of the most dangerous turns in their already tense relationship. On the outside, it looks like another border skirmish, but inside it's a deep struggle for influence, sovereignty, and recognition. Both sides are performing a dangerous dance of power, and their so-called safety efforts are only fueling instability. The unique aspect of this crisis, Saudi Arabia's entry as a mediator, offers a glimmer of hope amid the chaos. The price of continued confrontation is too high, and neither side can afford it.